Have you ever watched a championship-caliber team systematically dismantle itself piece by piece, trading away the very soul that made them contenders in the first place, and wondered if front office executives have completely lost their minds, or if they're playing chess while everyone else is stuck playing checkers? The Boston Celtics stand at the most precarious crossroads in recent franchise history, teetering on the edge of a roster revolution that could either propel them to another championship or send them spiraling into mediocrity faster than anyone imagined possible. Al Horford, the 38-year-old veteran who has served as the emotional and tactical backbone of his franchise through multiple championship runs, appears destined for departure, and his exit might trigger a domino effect that reshapes the entire Eastern Conference landscape. This isn't just another routine free agency story or typical NBA roster shuffling. This represents a fundamental shift in organizational philosophy that could either validate the Celtics' long-term vision or expose critical flaws in their championship construction strategy. With less than a month until tip-off, Boston finds itself navigating the most uncertain period in years, facing questions that extend far beyond individual player decisions. The gravity of Horford's potential departure cannot be understated. He represents more than statistical production or veteran leadership. He embodies the institutional knowledge and championship experience that transforms talented rosters into title-winning teams. Losing that kind of foundational presence creates ripple effects that touch every aspect of team culture, on-court execution, and competitive identity. Al Horford's looming departure represents far more than losing a single player. It signals the beginning of a comprehensive roster overhaul that could fundamentally alter Boston's championship trajectory. When veteran leaders of Horford's caliber leave organizations, they take with them intangible qualities that can't be replaced through trades or free agency signings. The veteran center has served as the Celtics' defensive anchor and emotional stabilizer during crucial moments, providing the kind of steady presence that allows younger players to take risks and develop confidence. His departure creates a leadership vacuum that extends beyond basketball strategy into areas of team chemistry, locker room culture, and playoff mentality that championship teams require. Recent reports suggest that Horford's exit might catalyze additional roster moves, with NBA insiders indicating that one of Boston's most prolific shooters has emerged as a potential trade candidate. This suggests a broader organizational philosophy shift that prioritizes long-term flexibility over maintaining the core group that brought championship success. The timing of these potential changes creates additional complexity because roster overhauls typically require adjustment periods that championship contenders can't afford. Teams that dramatically alter their core during competitive windows often struggle to maintain the chemistry and system familiarity that elite performance demands. The psychological impact on remaining players also deserves consideration. When teammates see veteran leaders departing, it can create uncertainty about organizational commitment and future direction that affects performance and team cohesion in ways that don't appear in box scores. The Boston Celtics face the classic championship window dilemma that haunts every successful franchise, balancing short-term competitive excellence with long-term sustainability while navigating salary cap constraints and aging veteran contracts. Horford's situation perfectly encapsulates this challenge because his value extends beyond current production into areas of leadership and experience that become magnified during playoff basketball. Championship windows in the modern NBA are notoriously narrow and unpredictable. Teams that hesitate to maximize their competitive opportunities often find themselves looking back with regret at missed chances that never return. The Celtics must decide whether maintaining veteran stability justifies the financial and roster flexibility costs that come with aging players. The complexity increases when considering that Horford's departure might not be entirely voluntary. Contract negotiations, salary cap mathematics, and organizational priorities can force difficult decisions that prioritize future flexibility over immediate championship pursuit. These decisions often prove correct in hindsight, but they require tremendous organizational conviction during uncertain moments. The Eastern Conference competitive landscape also influences these calculations. With teams like Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Miami maintaining championship aspirations, Boston can't afford roster downgrades that compromise their ability to compete at the highest level during what might be their optimal championship opportunity. The pressure to make the right decision intensifies because wrong choices in these situations often define organizational legacies for years. Front office executives understand that championship opportunities are precious and fleeting, making every roster decision carry enormous weight and consequence. The revelation that one of Boston's most prolific shooters has become a trade candidate adds another layer of intrigue to an already complex roster situation. This development suggests that the Celtics' potential overhaul extends beyond veteran leadership changes into areas of core skill set modification that could dramatically alter their competitive identity. Three-point shooting has become the foundation of modern NBA offense, and teams that surrender elite shooting typically struggle to maintain offensive efficiency unless they acquire comparable replacement talent. The identity of this shooting specialist remains unconfirmed, but the implications of trading away proven perimeter scoring ability during a championship window raise significant strategic questions. The timing of this potential trade consideration also creates interesting dynamics because shooting specialists often become more valuable during playoff basketball when defenses tighten and premium shot creation becomes essential. Teams that trade away reliable shooting sometimes discover that replacement options can't replicate that production when it matters most. However, trading proven shooters can also represent smart roster construction if it allows teams to address other weaknesses or acquire younger talent with higher upside potential. The key lies in ensuring that any shooting talent surrendered gets replaced through other roster additions or internal player development. The market dynamics surrounding elite shooters also favor teams willing to trade these players because contending franchises consistently overpay for proven perimeter scoring ability. This creates opportunities for shrewd organizations to maximize return value while maintaining competitive balance through strategic roster construction. The basketball analytics community has begun expressing skepticism about Boston's championship prospects for the upcoming season, with several prominent voices suggesting that the Celtics might underperform relative to preseason expectations. These predictions reflect concerns about roster instability, veteran departures, and the challenges associated with integrating new personnel into championship-caliber systems. Lowered expectations can actually benefit teams by reducing external pressure and allowing players to focus on development and system implementation without the burden of championship or bust mentalities. However, they can also indicate legitimate concerns about roster construction and competitive positioning that shouldn't be dismissed entirely. The analyst community often provides valuable perspective because they evaluate teams without emotional attachment or organizational bias. When multiple respected voices express similar concerns about roster direction and competitive outlook, it suggests underlying issues that require serious consideration. The challenge for Boston lies in determining whether these predictions reflect temporary adjustment concerns or more fundamental problems with their roster construction strategy. Championship teams often face skepticism during transition periods, but they also need honest evaluation of their competitive positioning. The correlation between analyst predictions and actual performance varies significantly, but teams ignore expert analysis at their own peril. The most successful organizations find ways to balance external perspective with internal conviction about their championship capabilities and roster construction philosophy. The Celtics' social media presence has reflected the organizational uncertainty surrounding roster changes, with fan engagement revealing deep anxiety about the team's championship prospects and future direction. Social media sentiment often provides valuable insights into fan base confidence and expectations that can influence organizational decision-making. Fan reactions to potential roster changes typically range from blind optimism to catastrophic pessimism, but the overall sentiment provides useful temperature checks about organizational credibility and championship expectations. When fan base confidence wavers, it can create additional pressure on front office executives to make moves that restore faith. The challenge with social media analysis involves separating reasonable concerns from reactionary responses that don't reflect thoughtful evaluation of roster construction and competitive positioning. Fans often focus on individual player attachments rather than comprehensive team-building strategies that might require difficult short-term sacrifices. However, fan engagement also represents genuine investment in franchise success that shouldn't be dismissed casually. When passionate supporters express concerns about organizational direction, it often indicates legitimate issues that require attention and communication from team leadership. The most successful franchises find ways to maintain fan confidence while making necessary roster adjustments that might initially appear unpopular but ultimately serve championship objectives. This requires transparent communication and consistent competitive performance that validates organizational decision-making. Boston's roster uncertainty occurs within the context of an Eastern Conference arms race where several franchises have made significant improvements and maintained championship aspirations. This competitive environment means that any roster downgrades or chemistry disruptions could have outsized impacts on playoff positioning and championship prospects. The Milwaukee Bucks remain formidable with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, while Philadelphia continues building around Joel Embiid and Paul George. Miami consistently overperforms expectations, and emerging teams like Orlando and Cleveland have made significant strides that could impact playoff dynamics. This competitive landscape creates urgency around roster construction decisions because standing still often means falling behind in relative terms, even if absolute performance remains consistent. Teams that fail to maintain competitive advantages often find themselves slipping from contender status to playoff bubble teams. The timing of roster changes also matters because chemistry development and system implementation require time that might not be available once the regular season begins. Teams that make significant changes close to the season opener often struggle early, while competitors establish momentum and confidence. The Eastern Conference playoff race promises to be exceptionally competitive, meaning that early season struggles caused by roster turnover could have lasting implications for playoff seeding and championship positioning that extend throughout the entire season. The Boston Celtics find themselves in the unenviable position of facing championship or bust expectations while navigating significant roster uncertainty that could undermine their competitive prospects. This dynamic creates enormous pressure on organizational decision-makers to balance competing priorities without compromising their championship window. Championship expectations carry both motivational benefits and psychological burdens that can influence team performance in unpredictable ways. Players who embrace championship pressure often elevate their performance, while others struggle with the weight of expectations and fail to reach their potential during crucial moments. The roster changes surrounding Horford's departure and potential additional trades create additional complexity because championship teams typically benefit from stability and chemistry that develops over time. Disrupting these elements during competitive windows represents calculated risks that can either enhance championship prospects or derail them entirely. The organizational challenge involves communicating confidence in roster construction decisions while acknowledging the legitimate concerns that come with significant changes during championship pursuits. This requires balancing transparency with optimism in ways that maintain fan support and player confidence. The ultimate measure of success will be championship results, but the process of roster construction and team building during competitive windows often determines whether those results become achievable or remain elusive dreams that haunt franchises for years. As Al Horford's departure looms and additional roster changes appear inevitable, the Boston Celtics stand at a crossroads that will define their competitive trajectory for years to come. The decisions made during this critical period will either validate their championship construction strategy or expose fundamental flaws in their organizational approach. The complexity of balancing veteran leadership, salary cap management, championship window optimization, and long-term sustainability creates challenges that test even the most sophisticated front office operations. Success requires making difficult decisions that might appear counterintuitive but serve broader competitive objectives. The Celtics situation reflects broader NBA realities about championship construction and the difficult choices that contending teams must navigate. Every franchise eventually faces similar crossroads where maintaining the status quo conflicts with strategic roster evolution that might enhance long-term competitive prospects. The key lies in making decisions based on comprehensive evaluation rather than emotional attachment or short-term pressure. Championship organizations consistently demonstrate willingness to make difficult choices that serve competitive objectives, even when those choices create temporary uncertainty or fan dissatisfaction. Whether the Celtics emerge from this period as strengthened championship contenders or cautionary tales about roster construction remains uncertain, but their decisions during this critical juncture will resonate throughout the Eastern Conference and influence championship dynamics for years to come. The Al Horford era appears to be ending, but the legacy of these roster decisions will define Boston's championship aspirations long after individual players have moved on to other opportunities and challenges. So here's what I need to know from all of you. Are the Celtics making the smartest possible moves by potentially moving on from veteran leadership and proven shooters, or are they about to make the kind of roster mistakes that haunt franchises for decades? And more importantly, if you were running the Celtics front office right now, would you be prioritizing championship pursuit with the current core or building for future flexibility, even if it meant sacrificing this year's title chances? Drop your thoughts below, because this roster shakeup could either be genius-level team building or the beginning of a championship window slamming shut.